Today on Gateway Unlocked.
When I took a deeper look, a friend of mine, my predecessor, was working on Simplify, and he was telling me about all the different technologies in terms of the stores, products, and the e-commerce side of things with Simplify. And then I also learned about the likes of MasterCard Foundry and the labs, which were working on really some cool, innovative projects. One example on one of my onboarding days was seeing this kind of holographic pin pad to put in your pin for your card, which is just completely in the air, is crazy. So
Is it?
stuff like that was really cool.
Hi, and welcome to Gateway Unlocked, MasterCard Payment Gateways podcast, where we connect with teammates from across the globe and organization on payment trends, innovation, and ideas that are shaping our business. I'm Anne Herrera, and today we're celebrating International Programmers Day. Our global programmer team is essential to our gateway, providing innovation, expertise across a variety of features, and their fundamental knowledge is imperative to stay ahead of the curve and especially to scale during a constantly changing payment technology ecosystem. So that's why I'm really excited to have on board today new to MasterCard programmer Luke Rin Cullen, who's a product manager for our small business gateway within MasterCard Payment Gateway Services. So, Luke, this is exciting. Not only do I get to do a podcast with a really great developer, but you're also new to MasterCard as well. So, welcome aboard.
Indeed. Thanks, Anne. Happy to be here.
Well, good. Yeah. And I love these podcasts that really talk about the person behind our innovation and our technology, because I think it's important, especially for our customers, to understand the scope and the expertise behind us. So I'd love to dive in. Tell me a little bit more about your career and what has brought you to MasterCard, because I totally peaked and, looked at your LinkedIn page, and you have such a really cool, diverse set of skills. What led you to MasterCard? How did you become a programmer?
Yeah, I have a really non-conventional kind of route to getting into development. I suppose it started back in college. I was studying English and history. I wanted to be a poet, but quickly found out there's not much money in poetry. So I was also a musician at the time and wanted to get into setting up, a bookings agency. And I thought, oh, why not build the next kind of Airbnb for the music industry where you could book people for your wedding or corporate events. From doing that, I went on a number of different kind of entrepreneur programs, got to grips with how to set up a startup and get into the technology space. And I quickly realized, look, developers are very expensive. So when you're a student with very limited budget, you're better off kind of relying on yourself and trying to get up to speed as quick as you can. So I started doing like a Django, Python, PostgreSQL course on Udemy, dabbled in a bit of YouTube tutorials and Skillshare, and then took the plunge into the no code, low code space, which I think is a really cool, exciting new area. I think some MasterCard employees are looking at it as well. And it's a place where you can really increase the speed of development and test and go to market really quick, and then get the developers involved when it comes to the really serious, more technical kind of things as well. So yeah, that's how I kind of got started. And then looking towards Mastercard, fintech is a really cool, interesting place to work in. It was just such a kind of greenfield of opportunity. It was an area I didn't know much about, and I'd started using a lot of different payment tools in my startups. Saw a lot of the different pain points because essentially we're an SME, and Simplify caters for SMEs, especially in the e-commerce side of things. So it was a really good fit at the end of the day.
I think that's exciting. And so many times we've chatted with other teammates within MPGS, and their route to MasterCard and to payment technology wasn't like clear cut. Like no one went into undergrad and said, I'm going to go into, payment technology, marketing or product management or something. But we've all come because it is such an ever changing and diverse space. You really have to be kept on your toes, and that's what I know keeps me and other colleagues happy. What was your perception of MasterCard? Coming into interviewing and looking even to applying for the job, or if you were being recruited for the job, because I think that there's still sometimes a disconnect between, and I know this is just with consumers perhaps of, oh, you work for a credit card company, and you're like, well, no, I work for a payment technology company, and I've never actually personally I've never done anything on the issuing side. So what was your perception, especially when it comes to developer community and the developer engagement part of it?
Yeah, no, guilty as charged. I kind of had the similar concept of the credit cards. And that was mainly from my experience with Revolut. So Revolut is one of those new fintech banks, and they very much were using Revolut for all their cards. So I was getting the nice shiny gold cards with the MasterCard logo on it and thinking, oh, this looks great. But yeah, so when I took a deeper look, a friend of mine, my predecessor, John Keneally, was working on Simplify. And he was telling me about all the different technologies in terms of the stores, products, and the e-commerce side of things with Simplify. And then I also learned about the likes of Mastercard Foundry and the labs, which were working on really some cool, innovative projects. One example on one of my onboarding days was seeing this kind of holographic pin pad to put in your pin for your card, which was just completely in the air. Is crazy. So
Is it?
stuff like that was really cool and good to see.
Yeah, they definitely woo you with the innovative just thinking and just the forward thinking. I think is just amazing from a lot of smart individuals in the organization. I came from labs actually before I joined
Nice.
Gateway, and it was mind blowing just the things that that they're building and cooking up. I loved it. So we're talking a lot about change and evolution, and really that's the theme for most of the podcast this season is we're looking about the evolution and change of payment technology. And as a programmer, I feel like you are definitely on the front line of experiencing that change in that technology and that new ways of, from the simple things of like, oh, not so simple, but of, oh, this is moving from, EMV from 3DS 1.0 to 2.0 and what we need to do. But not just that, but also then the technology that you're using to do your day-to-day role. How has your technology evolved since COVID? What are you looking at differently now?
I suppose from a team perspective, what I'd love to start bringing in more is kind of those asynchronous tools, because developers are working across time zones. I really love using the likes of Loom or Vidyard to do those screen recordings and walk my colleagues through my thought process behind different features and why we should build it one way or the other. A big thing I'm starting to incorporate a lot is there's so many new tools on the market. There's so many cool little startups out there that are solving a lot of the big pain points out there for developers, but also consumers alike. And perhaps at times, security willing, we can plug into those tools and really help use them to speed up our development cycle, and not have to duplicate work or anything like that. So a couple of examples would be like Sleek Plan, where you can kind of look at a change log or a roadmap and create a nice, lovely pipeline of features and gather customer feedback. But other things like analytics and making data-led decisions when
Mm.
it comes to the features you're pursuing is really important because as a developer, it's fine getting the acceptance criteria, but unless I know the real reason behind it, I don't really have that fire lit under me to go out and build a feature because I want to understand the impact on the customer at the end of the day. And it really does help, I think, having someone there that can understand the different workflows and logic used when you're coding, what's the different conditionals you need and the privacy settings. And there's a lot of compliance in fintech as well. So you need to make sure you've got your checklist sorted as well in advance.
You mentioned a really good soft skill in there, and I want to touch on it. Is you talked about what the customer challenges are and what they need. And I think that's essential. And especially, I love these podcasts because they're also helpful for, people who are looking to go into programming and sitting there in a college room and thinking, is this for me? What are some of the soft skills that you would coach, new and upcoming programmers, new and upcoming developers? What would you say to them? I think you raised a great one, which is, what does the customer need and getting back to that and understanding that. But what else? What are some other soft skills?
Communication is probably the biggest. So if you're writing features and you're using tons of technical jargon or acronyms, abbreviations, the person reading it may not be a topic expert, domain expert on it. They're going to really struggle and they'll be on the back foot straight away. And you might have lost them already before even convincing them of what you want to build. Then backing up what you say. So, I mean, if you write out the user story of what you want them to do, cite some resources, some market reports, or do some competitive analysis as well, just to be like, look, these guys are doing it. Can we do it too, please? That kind of helps a lot. Just you know, given some quality comms to get what you want over the line. As a marketer, you fully appreciate that as well. So, uh, yeah, I think communication is just the biggest skill anyone could ever need. And empathy. Empathy is one that I think isn't thought of as much. You need to sit there, listen, get everyone's kind of perspective on things because everyone has something to bring to the table. And once you digest all the information, come up with kind of, a really clear, constructive way of doing things. One thing that people forget to do is just take notes in a meeting
Mm.
and paste them in afterwards, and then you know what your follow up actions are. And if you're doing little things like that, people are going to be like, "Oh, this person's super productive, and they must have great memory, even though you're just taking your notes. You're going through your routine when it comes to a meeting."
It's got to be challenging now as everything evolves, and you're constantly learning. And I think that's general for a lot of industries now. How do you stay ahead of the curve? What are either you do you read? Do you listen to podcasts? Like, how do you stay ahead of the curve? And what would you recommend?
I love reading books, devouring podcasts as well. So, like, usually you can find kind of domain experts or knowledge leaders, perhaps thought leaders, probably the better word, that you can follow. So, one that I listen to a lot is the Grow TLDR podcast by Kieran Flanagan, and he's a VP in the marketing space. He's always on top of kind of what companies are doing to increase product-led growth, which helps us decide what kind of development work to do to increase usage. Another thing would be to set up a Google Alert with a lot of different keywords related to perhaps some competitors or products you really like, but also some kind of resources that you like to follow as well. And then recently I found Twitter has been recommending me some amazing content. So they really know what I like reading. So I'm getting a newsfeed full of, startup related stuff, technology related stuff, and you're seeing all these new products coming to market and solving a lot of different pain points I'm encountering. So I think curating your social media newsfeed is a big thing. People might not do it enough, and kind of grooming the algorithm into being very productive for you, so you don't have to go out hunting for information and it'll come to you. And then YouTube, I stay up way past I should be at my bedtime, but yeah, just devouring kind of little YouTube vlogs on different aspects of technology as well.
Have just a variety of sources of information, which I think is fantastic and so helpful to understand, how people have addressed different issues and tested through things. How do we encourage, new developers, and how do you foster either people again sitting in college thinking about what they want to do with their career? So your undergrad was in English?
Yeah, yeah, I stuck
Yeah.
it out.
So think back to then, and you were sitting there with your undergrad in English, creating poetry. What would you have said to encourage others to consider taking your steps?
Yeah, I think the main thing is ideas are to a penny, and ideally, the ideas you'd be coming up with are related to topics that you are doing, love, and enjoy. So I was managing the Yorkshire at the time. But what people don't do is they don't act on their ideas, and they worry about, oh, it needs to be perfect, or how do I execute on this? When in actual fact, I think it's nice as a student you're kind of blissfully ignorant of the de facto standards of how things need to be done or all the compliance mandates you need to meet if you're a scaled business. And so you can just find quick, easy solutions to do what you're looking to do. And as you kind of bring them out to market, you get customer feedback. As you get more used to the tools you're building with, you get better as a programmer. And every iteration comes quicker. So, I mean, you just need to get started. Most people don't. They sit in their laurels. They think, "Oh, I have this groundbreaking idea," but there could be 1,000 people with that idea. But if there's one that acts on it, they're going to take the market share. So yeah, definitely get started.
I love that. I think that's fantastic advice for anyone, not just someone who's thinking about going into developing or programming, but for anyone to just get started. Yeah, you'll be happier for what you do today than what you postpone tomorrow. All right. So I couldn't help myself, Luke. I know you're going to probably be a little surprised by this, but we've always wanted to include some just fast fire. So we're going to give you a pop quiz. Um, since you were an English major, we thought this would be a little fun to see how much of history you also took about being a programmer. So don't worry, it's just 5 quick questions. I think it'll be fun. All right, true or false? The first computer programmer was a female.
I'd go with true. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yes,
True.
it is true. Ada Lovelace, amazing woman. Just read a book about her actually, and not in prep for this podcast, but just for fun. Okay, and this one surprised me. Number 2, how many programming languages are there? And I'm going to give you give you a range. So A, under 300, B, 300 to 600, or C, over 700.
There's so many indie hackers out there. There has to be like at least 700, I'd say.
Yeah, there are over 700 languages. I think that's amazing. I'm curious to how many, do you guys all specialize in just one or two?
I use like Bubble, which is a visual development thing. So sometimes I don't even have to write the code, which is nice. Saves me a lot of time. I can
No,
use my English degree at last just to say, oh, I want this button to do X, Y, and Z.
nice. Nope, yeah, that sounds amazing. I mean, 700 languages, that's phenomenal. So, who used the phrase bug first?
I wouldn't be too sure.
So, according to one of our sources, that was actually Thomas Edison, and he used it in 1869 to describe problems in his own inventions. And then you mentioned hackers. So, when was the first replicating computer program written?
I think it was the 70s. I was watching some old documentaries on Netflix. But yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. It was 1971, and when I was reading about this, it was something about like you can't catch me, and it didn't do anything negative or malicious, but it was just I'm sure it was just really annoying to people who encountered it. This is really why we're here today. But why is World Programmers Day celebrated on September 13th specifically?
No, not too sure at all.
It's because it's the 256th day of the year. It's represented with the 8 byte and the highest power of 2, which is less than 365.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that completely overgeeked me. I was
No,
like,
no
oh,
worries.
okay, that's exciting. I think that's phenomenal. Last question: how are you celebrating International Programmers Day today?
I'll probably build another MVP, test out some ideas I have.
Sounds awesome. I like it. It's a good idea. Do the good ideas and get started.
Thanks, Anne. Appreciate you having me
Thanks.
on.
Thanks so much. Take care, Luke. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time.